Want to improve your English naturally while enjoying an emotional and inspiring story? Follow Leo, a poor restaurant worker with a big dream of becoming a chef. This simple English story will help you improve your listening, vocabulary, pronunciation, and speaking skills step by step. Close quote. The Restaurant Boy's Dream. Learn English through story, Level 1. In a crowded city filled with traffic, smoke, and bright neon lights, there lived a 17-year-old boy named Leo. Leo worked at a small family restaurant near the center of the city. Every morning before sunrise, he woke up early and walked through narrow streets carrying bags of fresh vegetables from the local market. The restaurant was small and old. Its walls were faded. The kitchen became extremely hot during busy hours, and the tables were often crowded with tired office workers and travelers looking for cheap meals. Leo worked there with his uncle after school every day. He cleaned tables, washed dishes, served customers, and sometimes helped cook simple meals. The work was exhausting. By the end of each night, his clothes smelled like smoke, oil, and spices. Still, Leo never complained, because deep inside he carried a dream. He wanted to become a chef someday, not just an ordinary cook, a real chef, someone who created beautiful food that made people happy. But most people laughed when they heard his dream. One evening, while Leo washed dishes beside the kitchen sink, a customer overheard him talking about cooking school. The man laughed loudly. "You?" he said. "Cooking schools are for rich people." Several workers nearby smiled awkwardly. Leo forced a small smile and continued washing dishes silently. But inside, the words hurt him deeply. That night, after closing the restaurant, Leo climbed to the rooftop of the old building. The city lights glowed endlessly beneath the dark sky. Leo sat quietly beside the edge of the roof, eating leftover bread while thinking about his future. Sometimes his dream felt impossible. His family struggled financially. His parents lived in another town working difficult factory jobs, and every month Leo sent part of his salary home to help them. Cooking school seemed very far away. Still, whenever Leo entered the kitchen, something inside him felt alive. He loved the sounds of cooking, the smell of garlic and onions frying in hot oil, the colorful vegetables, the creativity, the energy. Cooking made him feel hopeful. One rainy afternoon, a famous food critic unexpectedly visited the restaurant. The owner immediately became nervous. Everyone worked faster than usual. The cooks prepared dishes carefully. Servers moved quickly between crowded tables. But during the busiest moment of the evening, disaster happened. The main chef suddenly slipped near the kitchen and injured his arm badly. The kitchen became chaotic. Orders piled up everywhere. Customers grew impatient. The owner panicked. Then quietly, Leo stepped forward. "I can help," he said nervously. The cooks looked surprised. "You?" one asked. Leo swallowed hard but nodded. The owner hesitated for a moment. Finally, he sighed heavily. "We have no choice." Leo quickly tied on an apron and entered the kitchen. His hands trembled at first, but once cooking began, his fear slowly disappeared. He moved carefully and calmly. He prepared noodles, cooked sauces, seasoned vegetables, and arranged plates beautifully. The kitchen workers stared in shock. Leo cooked with confidence they had never seen before. Hours later, the busy evening finally ended. Everyone waited nervously for the food critic's opinion. The owner approached the customer carefully. "How was your meal?" The critic smiled slowly. "Surprisingly excellent." The entire restaurant became silent. Then the critic added something unexpected. "The young cook especially has talent." Leo froze. For a moment, he could barely breathe. That single sentence changed something inside him forever. That night, after the restaurant finally closed, Leo remained alone in the kitchen, cleaning dishes quietly. But his heart still raced with excitement. The famous food critic's words repeated again and again inside his mind. The young cook especially has talent. No one had ever said something like that to him before. For years, people only saw him as a poor restaurant worker, a dishwasher, a delivery boy. Someone who cleaned tables and carried heavy boxes. But for the first time, someone saw his potential. As Leo wiped the kitchen counters slowly, his uncle approached him. The older man rarely showed emotions openly, but tonight his expression looked softer than usual. "You did well," he admitted quietly. Leo looked surprised. "Thank you." His uncle crossed his arms thoughtfully. "Where did you learn to cook like that?" Leo smiled shyly. "I watch cooking videos late at night after work." His uncle stared at him for a moment. "You study cooking after working all day?" Leo nodded. "Whenever I can." For the first time in many years, his uncle looked genuinely impressed. The next morning, something unusual happened. Customers began returning to the restaurant asking specifically about the young chef from yesterday. Some even requested the same dishes Leo prepared during the busy evening. The owner suddenly became much friendlier toward him. "You'll help in the kitchen more often now," he announced. Leo tried hiding his excitement. "Yes, sir." Days passed. Leo slowly spent more time cooking instead of washing dishes. At first, he only prepared simple meals, soups, noodles, rice dishes. But every day he learned something new. He watched experienced cooks carefully. He memorized recipes. He practiced knife skills late at night after closing hours. Sometimes he stayed awake until midnight, experimenting with flavors using leftover ingredients. Although life remained difficult, Leo finally felt closer to his dream. One evening, while returning home after work, Leo passed by an expensive culinary school in the city centre. Bright lights glowed through large windows. Inside, students wearing white chef uniforms practiced cooking in beautiful modern kitchens. Leo stopped walking and stared silently through the glass. The students looked confident, professional, successful. For a moment, sadness filled his chest again. That world felt impossibly far away from him. A security guard near the entrance noticed Leo standing outside. "You can't stand here," the man said impatiently. Leo quickly apologized and walked away. But deep inside, he made a quiet promise to himself. "Someday," he whispered softly, "I'll study there too." Weeks later, the famous food critic unexpectedly returned to the restaurant. This time he asked specifically for Leo. The workers immediately called him from the kitchen. Leo nervously approached the table. The critic smiled warmly. "You're the young cook from before, correct?" Leo nodded carefully. "Yes, sir." The man introduced himself as Mr. Bennett. "I reviewed restaurants for over 20 years, he explained, "and talent is rare." Leo listened silently. Mr. Bennett continued. "You have natural instincts, but natural talent alone is not enough." Leo lowered his eyes respectfully. "I know." The critic studied him carefully. "Do you truly want to become a chef?" "Yes," Leo answered immediately. Mr. Bennett smiled slightly, "Then never stop learning." Before leaving, the critic handed Leo a small notebook. Inside were handwritten cooking tips, recipes, and advice collected throughout his career. Leo stared at the notebook in disbelief. "This is for me." Mr. Bennett nodded. "Use it well." That night, Leo carefully read every page repeatedly inside his tiny apartment room. Some notes explained cooking techniques, others discussed discipline, creativity, and patience. One sentence especially stayed in his heart. "A great chef does not cook to impress people. A great chef cooks to make people feel something." From that day forward, Leo worked even harder. Every morning before work, he practiced cutting vegetables perfectly. After work, he studied recipes for hours. He borrowed cooking books from libraries. Sometimes he skipped sleeping just to continue learning. Months later, the restaurant owner noticed major improvements. Customers praised Leo's dishes constantly. Business slowly improved. Soon, the owner allowed Leo to create one special meal every weekend. People loved his food because it felt different, warm, comforting, personal. Leo cooked with emotion. One rainy evening, a tired woman entered the restaurant carrying 2 small children. She looked exhausted and worried. The children sat quietly while their mother counted money carefully before ordering the cheapest meal available. Leo noticed immediately. Quietly, he prepared a larger meal with extra soup, fresh bread, and dessert. When the woman realized the extra food was free, her eyes filled with tears. "You made this for us?" she asked softly. Leo smiled shyly. "Everyone deserves a good meal." The woman thanked him repeatedly before leaving. That moment affected Leo deeply. For the first time, he understood something important. Cooking was not only about food, it was about comfort, care, connection, and sometimes kindness. As the months passed, Leo's confidence slowly grew. But life continued testing him. One winter, his father became seriously ill back in his hometown. Medical bills became expensive. Leo immediately began sending most of his earnings home. Soon, he could barely afford rent or proper meals for himself. Still, he continued working every day without complaining. Some nights he returned home completely exhausted. Sometimes he wondered if life would always remain difficult. One particularly cold evening, Leo sat alone on the restaurant rooftop again. Snow slowly fell across the city lights below. His hands felt rough from endless kitchen work. His body ached from exhaustion. For a moment he felt overwhelmed. Maybe his dream was too unrealistic after all. Maybe survival mattered more than ambition. Then suddenly he remembered Mr. Bennet's words. Never stop learning. Leo closed his eyes quietly. Deep inside, despite all the struggles, his dream still burned strongly, and he realized something important. Dreams are not proven during easy moments. Dreams are proven during difficult ones. The next morning, Leo woke up earlier than usual. He looked at the city sunrise from his apartment window and smiled softly. Then he put on his worn kitchen shoes and returned to work once again. Because no matter how hard life became, he refused to give up on the dream waiting inside his heart. The winter months became some of the hardest times in Leo's life. Every day followed the same exhausting routine. Wake up before sunrise, carry vegetables from the market, work long hours inside the hot kitchen, return home late at night completely tired, then study cooking books until sleep finally overcame him. Still, Leo continued moving forward, because even during difficult days his dream gave him strength. One icy morning, while preparing soup inside the restaurant kitchen, Leo accidentally burned his hand badly on a large metal pan. The pain was sharp. He immediately dropped the pan and stepped backward. Several workers looked alarmed. His uncle quickly grabbed cold water and wrapped Leo's hand carefully. "You should rest today," his uncle said firmly, but Leo shook his head. "We're already busy." His uncle frowned. "You can barely move your hand." Still, Leo returned to work minutes later. The pain made cooking difficult. Every movement burned, but he continued preparing dishes quietly without complaint. That evening, after closing time, his uncle sat beside him near the kitchen. For several moments, neither of them spoke. Then finally his uncle sighed heavily. "You remind me of someone." Leo looked surprised. "Who?" "Your grandfather." Leo blinked. He had rarely heard stories about his grandfather. He also loved cooking, his uncle explained quietly. He owned a tiny food stall many years ago. Leo listened carefully. "He worked constantly," the older man continued, "even when life became difficult." "What happened to him?" Leo asked softly. His uncle smiled sadly. "He died before becoming successful." The kitchen became silent again. Then his uncle added something unexpected. "But he died proud, because he never abandoned his dream." Those words stayed deeply inside Leo's heart. Days later, something surprising happened. Mr. Bennet, the famous food critic, invited Leo to attend a small food festival in the city. When Leo read the invitation letter, his hands trembled with excitement. The festival included talented chefs from famous restaurants across the region. For someone like Leo, it felt like entering another world. On the day of the festival, Leo arrived wearing his cleanest shirt and old black shoes. The event took place inside a beautiful hotel ballroom filled with delicious smells, bright lights, and elegant decorations. Professional chefs moved confidently between cooking stations. Journalists interviewed famous restaurant owners. Expensive cameras flashed constantly. At first, Leo felt extremely nervous. He suddenly became very aware of his simple clothes and poor background. Several chefs nearby spoke about culinary schools, international travel, and luxury restaurants. Leo quietly stood near the back of the room, feeling out of place. Then Mr. Bennet noticed him immediately. "You came," he said warmly. Leo smiled nervously. "Yes, sir." Mr. Bennet guided him through the festival, introducing him to different chefs. Some barely noticed Leo, but others listened kindly while he asked questions about cooking techniques and ingredients. Leo absorbed every detail carefully. Suddenly, an announcement echoed through the ballroom. A surprise cooking challenge would begin shortly. Young cooks could participate voluntarily. The winner would receive a scholarship opportunity for culinary training. Leo's heart immediately began racing. A scholarship. This was the chance he dreamed about. But fear quickly followed. Most participants looked far more experienced and wealthy than him. Mr. Bennet noticed Leo's hesitation. "You should enter." Leo looked uncertain. "I'm not good enough." Mr. Bennet stared at him seriously. "Stop deciding your future based on fear." Those words hit Leo deeply. Several minutes later, with trembling hands, Leo added his name to the participant list. The challenge began quickly. Each contestant received basic ingredients and 1 hour to create an original dish. The large kitchen became chaotic immediately. Knives chopped rapidly, pans sizzled loudly, contestants rushed between ingredients nervously. At first, Leo froze. His mind went completely blank. Then he closed his eyes for a moment and remembered something important: the meals his mother cooked during childhood. Simple food made with love despite financial struggles. Suddenly, inspiration arrived. Leo began cooking calmly. He prepared a humble but deeply comforting dish inspired by his family's recipes: fresh noodles, rich broth, slow-cooked vegetables, simple ingredients prepared carefully and honestly. Unlike other contestants, Leo focused less on appearance and more on emotion. He cooked the kind of meal that made people feel warm inside. When time ended, judges tasted each dish carefully. Leo waited nervously among the contestants. Some dishes looked incredibly beautiful and expensive. His own dish appeared much simpler. For a moment, doubt returned again. Then one judge suddenly smiled while tasting Leo's food. Another judge quietly nodded. The judges whispered together for several minutes. Finally, the results were announced. 3rd place. 2nd place. Then the head judge stepped forward holding the final envelope. 1st place, he announced, goes to Leo Martinez. The entire room erupted with applause. Leo stood frozen in shock. For several seconds, he could barely move. Then tears slowly filled his eyes. Mr. Bennett smiled proudly from the crowd. The judges handed Leo a certificate and scholarship invitation for a respected culinary training program. As cameras flashed around him, Leo remembered every difficult moment he survived. The exhausting work, the insults, the loneliness, the fear, the nights he almost gave up, and suddenly every struggle felt meaningful. Later that evening, Leo stood alone outside the hotel beneath glowing city lights. Cold wind moved through the streets while snow fell softly around him. He looked at the scholarship letter in his hands again and again. It still felt unreal. Then he quietly called his parents. When his mother answered, Leo's voice shook with emotion. "I won," he whispered. For several seconds, silence filled the phone. Then his mother began crying happily. His father's emotional voice appeared in the background. "We always believed in you." Leo closed his eyes tightly, because for the first time in his life, he finally began believing in himself too. That night, Leo barely slept. The scholarship letter rested carefully beside his bed while city lights glowed through the small apartment window. Again and again he reread the words printed across the page: full culinary training scholarship. For years, cooking school felt like an impossible dream, something meant for other people, rich people, lucky people. But now, for the first time, the dream felt real. Still, along with excitement, came fear. The culinary program would begin in another part of the city several months later. The training would be difficult, the students would be talented, and deep inside, Leo still carried insecurities about his poor background. The next morning, Leo arrived at the restaurant earlier than usual. His uncle stood near the kitchen, preparing vegetables, when Leo quietly handed him the scholarship letter. The older man carefully read every line. Then he slowly removed his glasses and smiled proudly. "You did it." Leo laughed nervously. "I still can't believe it." His uncle placed a hand on his shoulder. "You earned this." Those simple words meant more to Leo than any award. Over the following weeks, news about Leo's scholarship spread across the neighborhood. Customers congratulated him warmly. Neighbors smiled proudly when he passed by. Even people who once doubted him now spoke differently. One evening, the same customer who once laughed at Leo's dream returned to the restaurant. This time, the man looked embarrassed. "I heard about your scholarship," he admitted awkwardly. Leo nodded politely. The man hesitated before speaking again. "I was wrong about you." For a moment, Leo remembered how painful those old words once felt, but now, strangely, he no longer felt angry. Instead, he simply smiled softly. It's okay, because success had already answered the doubts for him. As the first day of culinary school approached, Leo became increasingly nervous. He practiced cooking constantly after work: knife skills, sauces, presentation, timing. Sometimes he worked until his hands shook from exhaustion. Still, he feared he would not be good enough. One rainy evening, Mr. Bennett visited the restaurant again. He immediately noticed Leo's worried expression. "What's troubling you?" he asked. Leo hesitated. "What if I fail at cooking school?" Mr. Bennet smiled knowingly. Everyone feels afraid before entering something new, but the other students will probably be much better than me. The older man leaned forward calmly. Leo, talent opens doors, but discipline keeps them open. Leo listened carefully. Mr. Bennet continued, You already learned discipline through hardship. Never underestimate that. Those words stayed in Leo's mind. Finally, the first day of culinary school arrived. The campus looked modern and beautiful. Large kitchens filled with shining equipment stretched across the building. Students wearing white chef uniforms walked confidently through the halls. Many came from wealthy families. Some already had experience in famous restaurants. Leo suddenly felt small again. As he entered the training kitchen, nervous whispers filled the room. Students introduced themselves proudly. My father owns 3 restaurants. I studied cooking in France. I trained under famous chefs. Leo quietly stood near the back, feeling invisible. Then the instructor entered, Chef Laurent, a serious middle-aged chef known for strict discipline. The room immediately became silent. Chef Laurent studied the students carefully before speaking. Cooking is not about fame, he said firmly. It is not about social media. It is not about looking important. He paused briefly. Cooking is about discipline, sacrifice, and care for others. Leo listened intensely. For the first time that day he felt calmer, because those words matched everything he believed about food. Training quickly became extremely difficult. Students woke before sunrise, classes lasted long hours, mistakes received harsh criticism. Burns and cuts became common. Some students quit after only a few weeks. Others constantly competed against each other. At first, Leo struggled badly. His knife speed was slower than other students. His presentation skills lacked elegance. Sometimes instructors criticized his dishes harshly in front of everyone. One afternoon, after failing an important cooking exercise, Leo sat alone behind the school building feeling defeated. Rain clouds covered the grey sky above the city. Maybe he truly did not belong there after all. Then suddenly, another student approached quietly. Her name was Sophia. Leo recognized her immediately because she was one of the best students in the program. You cook with emotion, she said while sitting beside him. Leo looked surprised. That's not enough here. Sophia smiled slightly. Actually, it matters more than you think. Leo stayed silent. I've tasted technically perfect food before, she continued, but your cooking feels human. For the first time in days, Leo smiled faintly. Slowly, he and Sophia became friends. They studied together after class, practiced recipes late into the night, and encouraged each other during difficult moments. Unlike many students, Sophia never cared about status or money. She respected hard work. One evening during practice, Chef Laurent quietly observed Leo preparing soup. After tasting it, the strict instructor remained silent for several seconds. Then he asked, Who taught you this recipe? Leo shook his head. My mother cooked something similar when I was a child. Chef Laurent stared thoughtfully at the bowl. Interesting. The chef walked away without another word. But the next day, something unexpected happened. Chef Laurent demonstrated Leo's soup recipe in front of the entire class. This, he explained calmly, is what people forget about modern cooking. The students listened carefully. Food should make people feel comfort. Leo stood frozen in shock. For the first time his background felt valuable instead of embarrassing. Months passed. Leo improved rapidly. His confidence slowly grew. He still worked harder than most students because he knew struggle could return at any moment. But now he no longer feared failure the same way. One evening after class, Sophia asked him, What do you want most after graduation? Leo thought quietly. Then he smiled. I want to open a restaurant someday. Sophia looked impressed. What kind? Leo stared thoughtfully through the kitchen windows at the glowing city outside. A place where ordinary people can feel warmth and comfort, he answered softly. Not expensive food for rich people. Real food for real people. Sophia smiled warmly. That sounds like a place people would love. Leo smiled too. Because for the first time, his dream no longer felt impossible. It finally felt like the beginning of something real.